It is becoming increasingly evident that the Democratic National Committee and the ultra-wealthy donor class do not want Bernie Sanders to become the eventual nominee for the 2020 presidential election. But why? Why sabotage a candidate who has legitimate support among the party's base and energizes working-class voters? I will explain this. What we are witnessing is merely a repeat of the 2016 Democratic primary race, with the Iowa caucuses being the first example of what is essentially a rigged election. In 2016, the conventional wisdom amongst the political punditry was that Hillary Clinton was the candidate with the strongest political advantages. Polling data suggested she would perform far greater than Bernie Sanders in a general election. However, polling data also showed her defeating Donald Trump in a general election by, in some estimates, double digits. As it turned out, Donald Trump's ability to energize a working-class base in essential states such as Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania led to a sizable electoral college victory. There is suggestion that many Bernie Sanders supporters flipped their support towards Donald Trump in the general election because of after what seemed to be clear interference from the DNC in the Democratic Party's primary race. The notorious Iowa caucus 6 coin flips that all landed Hillary Clinton the necessary delegates to win Iowa served as just the beginning of what many believe to be a rigged process. The bottom line is that Democratic voters did not ultimately decide their candidate in 2016. Superdelegates and the party's establishment elites decided it. Just as in 2016, the Party of Democracy cannot produce a winning candidate if that candidate is not chosen democratically. Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, currently leads the delegate count for the Iowa caucuses. Just today, February 8th, a New Hampshire poll from the Boston Globe shows Mayor Pete edging Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a state that Bernie won over Hillary Clinton in 2016, and it is still widely believed that Sanders will win New Hampshire again this election cycle. However, if Pete Buttigieg is able to edge out a perceived victory over Bernie in New Hampshire, that could prove to be a fatal blow to Bernie's 2020 campaign. A dream come true for the party's establishment. The Democratic Party's establishment is using Mayor Pete as a spoiler in an attempt to stifle Bernie Sanders' campaign. Does the DNC actually want Mayor Pete as their candidate? I believe they would much prefer him to Bernie for a couple of reasons. 1. Buttigieg is not a true populist, unlike Bernie. However, he is capable of having a populist image. Being a mayor from a Midwestern Indiana city of approximately 100,000 people is a more relatable and trustworthy image than a multi-billionaire casino and real estate mogul and television star. 2. They fear the socialist brand. For decades, Republicans have labeled Democrats as socialists, with the conventional strategy being to deny that socialism is any possibility. A Pew Research poll from June 25th, 2019 shows that 65% of American voters have a positive view of capitalism, as opposed to 42% having a positive one for socialism. Many fear that this factor alone, accompanying Trump's economic successes, payrolls expanding by 225,000 new jobs in January, an unemployment rate of 3.6%, the Dow Jones increasing by more than 10,000 points since Trump's election. It is believed among the donor class that Bernie Sanders' economic policies are a threat to the donor class, many of whom fund the Democratic National Committee. But it is because of both Trump's economy and his populist appeal that energize working-class voters that the Democrats' best chances is to run a true populist candidate against him. Why has the Democratic Party's establishment not learned their lesson from the previous election cycle? Is the Democratic National Committee rallying behind Pete Buttigieg, or simply using him as a spoiler candidate for a more establishment choice such as Michael Bloomberg? Depending on Tuesday's New Hampshire primary, we will receive a clearer picture of whether or not the Democrats will nominate a truly democratically elected candidate or a donor class anointed one. Stay tuned, offer your theories in the comment section, and subscribe.